Yeah. Oh, very good morning, all of you. So, in today's live session, we'll follow our specific format, a general discussion followed by academic discussion, subject discussion, more or less. Also, we'll have some image based discussion today, as we have been doing every day. So, we'll have several images today as well. So, I hope you guys are all ready. Yeah. Once again, a very good morning, all of you, and welcome to 5 a.m. Club. So this is day 6. So almost 1 week. So 21-day challenge. It's of 3 weeks. So we're almost about to complete 1 week. So I'm sure by now you must have been habituated to waking up early in the morning. I mean, I did. So just imagine what will happen at the end of third week or 21st day, right? So now let's move on to our general discussion. So as you know, the reference is from Psychocybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. So today we'll have the following topic discussion. It's about how we perceive about ourselves. Before I go ahead with this, let me ask you this question. Do you love nature? Do you love mountains? Do you love greenlands, forests, animals? Do you love the creation that's around you? Ask yourself this question. And what would be the answer? So just hold on to that thought. Let's review this information. Stop carrying around a mental picture of yourself as a defeated, worthless person. Stop dramatizing yourself as an object of pity and injustice. And the word esteem, in fact, the author talks about enhancing one's self esteem. It's good to hear that Harita, yeah, Renuka, Shweta, you all love nature. Of course, we all do love nature because we are part and parcel of this. We're amazed by these seas, the oceans, the mountains, the hills, whatnot. We're just amazed by the nature. So let's get back to this. The word esteem literally means to appreciate the worth of anything. So, why do men or women stand in awe of stars, the moon, the immensity of sea, the beauty of a flower or a sunset, and at the same time downgrade themselves? Did not the same creator make man or woman? Is not man or woman himself the most marvelous creation of all? This appreciation of your own worth is not egotism unless you assume that you made yourself and should take some credit out of this creation. Do not downgrade the product merely because you haven't used it correctly. Don't childishly blame the product for your own errors, like the schoolboy who said, this typewriter can't spell. So, in simple words, a bad worker blames his or her tools. When we love nature, you all answered yes, that's good to hear. Good to see your answers. We all love nature for obvious reasons. Then why do we hate ourselves so much, especially in challenging times or whenever we come across any problem? We often tend to say, I'm a failure rather than saying I've failed. See, when I say I failed, it means I've done some mistakes and have an opportunity to overcome them. But when I say I'm a failure, so I'm downgrading myself in the process. I see most of the aspirants or most of people, society as such, sticking on to this particular statement, downgrading themselves, criticizing themselves, assuming that they're always wrong and they're good for nothing, which is very unfortunate because when you love all these elements of nature, don't you think you are also a component of these elements or nature? So, how can you or how can we assume that the nature is beautiful but not us? The nature is amazing but not us. So, this is something which I think each and every one of us should ask ourselves for our own sake, right? And as I say, bad worker blames his or her tools. It's only those who are not capable of fulfilling their potential, you know, usually point out fingers either at others or at themselves. isn't it? So this is something which I wanted to highlight initially. So I hope it's thought provoking. So just keep asking yourselves the questions, and I'm sure you'll get all the answers. And finally, before we move on, just keep in mind that each and every one of us is unique in our own way. Uh, as we discussed previously, only when we resort to these idiotic and stupid comparisons, we keep downgrading ourselves in the process. But the fact is, just like how each and every flower is amazing in its own way, you don't say rose is more beautiful than any other some other particular flower, like sunflower. No, both are unique. You cannot compare apples with oranges. So that I would consider as a take-home message. So let's move on. So special techniques for identifying infectious agents. So we'll review some stains and also the microorganisms or infectious agents that are used for identifying. Okay, so we'll do it very briefly. In the process, we'll review some information from Robbins Pathology, ninth edition. So, what are various special techniques for identifying infectious agents? So, you heard of hematoxylin eosin right from the first year of your BDS. Also, this gram staining. What else do we have? Yeah, we'll review now. So, as you can see, some infectious agents can be seen in hematoxylin and eosin stain sections. Examples: inclusion bodies formed by cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex virus, bacterial clumps, which usually stain blue, candida and mucor among the fungi, most protozoans, and all helminths. So you have the entire list here, which can be stained uh, with hematoxylin and eosin. And before we move any further, why do we need these stainings? Obviously, for identifying the infectious agents, histopathologic examination. So many infectious agents, however, are best visualized by special stains that identify organisms on the basis of particular characteristics of their cell wall or coat. For example, polysaccharide component of cell wall. So gram, acid fast, silver, music carmine, giemsa stains, or after labeling with specific antibodies. So we have these various other stains which can be used for identifying infectious agents. We'll go through that table a bit later. Before that, organisms are usually best visualized at the advancing edge of a lesion rather than its center, particularly if there is necrosis. Remember, if at all there is a question like, and in fact, it's very interesting to know that there is some lesion. So, where do you obtain a biopsy to study the infectious agent? So, is it at the center of the lesion or is it at the advancing edge of the lesion? So, you have the answer here from a standard reference. So, you can just make a note of it. Organisms are usually best visualized at the advancing edge of a lesion rather than at its center, particularly if there is necrosis. Acute infections can be diagnosed serologically by detecting pathogen specific antibodies in serum. This is true even in case of COVID 19. We discussed about various tests for identifying um, the disease, including the role of antibodies, if you remember, before the previous exam. The presence of specific immunoglobulin M, IgM, as you know, IgM is one of the first antibodies to respond and appear in the blood in response to infection. So the presence of specific immunoglobulin M, IgM antibodies shortly after the onset of symptoms is often diagnostic, right? It takes some time for us to produce these antibodies. So, alternatively, specific antibody titers can be measured early or again 4 to 6 weeks after infection. A fourfold rise in titer is usually considered diagnostic. You can make a note of this point as well. Assays for serum antibodies are very useful for diagnosis of hepatitis caused by viruses. So the take-home message here is antibodies can be used, right, for diagnostic purpose. That's very obvious with the given information here, uh, especially acute infections or even in case of 4 to 6 weeks of duration, where you can find out the convalescent stays as well, right? And nucleic acid based tests collectively known as molecular diagnostics. So where you try to find out the nucleic acid components of the infectious agents. It can be bacteria or virus. So these are routinely used nowadays to detect pathogens. What is this rapid PCR, which we discussed previously? Nucleic acid or molecular diagnostic? Yeah. So nucleic acid amplification techniques such as PCR and transcription mediated amplification are used for diagnosis of gonorrhea, chlamydial infection, tuberculosis, and herpes encephalitis. So in fact, these are considered to be more sensitive than conventional techniques of staining and identifying the infectious agents. So as per the literature, you can see molecular assays are much more sensitive than conventional testing for some pathogens, if not all. PCR testing of CSF, that is cerebrospinal fluid, for viral culture, for herpes simplex virus, HSV encephalitis, has a sensitivity of about 80%, whereas the viral culture, on the contrary, has a sensitivity of less than 10%, which means these molecular tests are even more accurate and more sensitive in identifying the pathogens, right? And similarly, nucleic acid tests for genital chlamydia detect 10 to 30% more infections than does conventional chlamydia culture. For other infections such as gonorrhea, the sensitivity of nucleic acid testing is similar to that of culture. And quantitative nucleic acid amplification tests, they are used not only for diagnostic purpose but also for medical management of infections such as HIV, HPV, and hepatitis C virus. So depending upon the stage, depending upon the title, we can institute and modify medical management accordingly. So this is, in brief, the overview of various special techniques, special stains for identifying infectious agents. In fact, special stains, you can find the list in E-classes general pad section. You can go through that. It's mentioned in Harsh Mohan as well. So special techniques for identifying agents. So antibodies, cultures, and DNA probes are the latest. And along with that, we have this conventional techniques such as gram stain, acid fast stain, silver stains, per iodic acid shift, PAS, muscarmine, GIMSA, and the rest we just mentioned. So gram stain can be used for most bacteria. Also, we'll have some images now. So gram stain identifying most bacteria, gram positive or gram negative, acid fast or Nielsen stain, Mycobacteria nocardi, silver stains, fungi, Legionella, pneumocystis, periodic acid shift, fungi or amoebae, musicarmine, cryptococci neoformans, GIMSA, Leishmania, and Plasmodium, antibodies, cultures, and DNA probes can be used for identifying all classes of infectious agents. And also, they're more sensitive in some cases, as we have seen just now. So, gram positive and gram negative bacteria on left and right, respectively. So, this is gram staining. And then you have acid fast staining or Gill-Nielsen staining, identifying mycobacteria. So you have these silver stains. So this in specific is silver stain section of brain lesions. You can see characteristic curvilinear bacteria in stacks. So this is a silver stain. And then you have PAS staining, periodic. We used to, during our plus two, we used to read it as periodic, since we had periodic table. Then we realized that it's iodic, periodic. A periodic acid shift stain showing septate and fungal hyphae, identifying of fungus. And then musicarmine stain for Cryptococcus neoformans, right? So once we conclude this session, I suggest you to allot some additional time to observe these images carefully. Just spend some time in observing these images. That's it. And then we have GIMSA stain thin film, thin blood film of patient with malaria, Plasmodium falciparum malaria. Yeah, right. So before we conclude, let's have a summary of all that we have discussed so far. So day 6, it's no easy. Now, by now, it must be very clear for you, like the significance of maintaining consistency. So do not downgrade yourself. You're unique in your own way. And once you start appreciating yourself, you can give your best and you can enjoy each and every moment. So various special techniques for identifying infectious agents, along with conventional stains, we have this molecular diagnostics, which are the latest, including we can even use antibodies, right, for detecting all classes of infectious agents, as we have seen in the table. So hematoxylin eosin, gram staining, silver staining. We've seen some of the illustrations or images also. So antibodies can be used for identifying infections. We have this nucleic acid based tests, not only for identification, but also to help us in management, and various special techniques and the corresponding infectious agents which can be identified as we have reviewed in brief. Okay. And regarding these images, as I said, just spend some time to go through them, allot some time just for observing these images, and then move on. Okay. So before we conclude, now you answer the question. So, is it easy or difficult to maintain consistency? You tell me. So, on day one, you've seen that we start with so much of enthusiasm. This holds true for any task, literally any task, take my word. But only as we move on, we'll realize how challenging it is to actually maintain consistency. And in the process, I personally have observed that when we start anything, taking the first step is very tough. And once we overcome that challenge, the second challenge is to maintain consistency. Uh, we have so many dreams, we wish to accomplish so many things. But to move in that direction, to take the first step is often a huge challenge, right? But once we overcome that, the next challenge is to maintain consistency, where most of the aspirants do fail, unfortunately. The first step itself, many of them give up. The thought of taking that step, the first bold step. And the second step, where most of us find it very challenging, is to maintain this consistency, which is not easy at all for those who are not determined. But for those who are determined, obviously anything is a cakewalk. This maintaining of consistency is also a cakewalk. You'll no longer struggle to move in that direction. So, those who are attending the live session now, are you still struggling to wake up early in the morning? This is just an example. It's not that those who don't wake up will fail. It's just an example. So, those who are waking up early in the morning, are you struggling? You know the answer, right? So, just imagine what if we follow this for the next 2 weeks, that is, complete a 21-day challenge. Don't you think it's going to be transformative? So, in the process of this 21-day challenge, of course, there are so many challenges. That's the reason why it's called 21-day challenge. Ups and downs, we tend to miss 1 day or 2 days, but that's absolutely fine. Overall, the point here is to getting used to new habits which enhance our personal and professional life in multiple ways possible. So always keep that in mind. And before I conclude, as I keep on reminding, it's all about our efforts towards the task at hand, to maintain that consistency. Now you know the value of it, and most importantly, believing in ourselves. So no matter what general topic we discuss, they all fit into one or two of these categories. So the general discussion which we had, it's all about believing in self. When you love yourself, when you appreciate yourself as a unique being, then you'll start believing in yourself, isn't it? So let's conclude with this. And you have any queries, you need any clarification, of course, you know the protocol. You can always get back through mail 24/7 at proudtobedentist@gmail.com. So this is today's Saturday, so weekend. So tomorrow we'll have a 5 a.m. session in a different format possible. We'll plan something different since it's a weekend, and I'll see you again very soon. And also, we had a wonderful debate session last night. So I appreciate those who have participated in the same, and again woke up early in the morning to attend this 5 a.m. club. So well done. Just keep this enthusiasm going. All the very best. Love you all. Have a fantastic day ahead. Exactly, Deepika. Ritu, to maintain consistency is challenging. Love to do challenging tasks, improve self. Exactly. Ultimately, it's about improvement of self. And when you understand and realize this very simple fact, who is going to stop you? No one is going to stop you. Even if someone tries to stop you, it will be another challenge which you will obviously overcome, because the point is, as we discussed prior, you are determined. We are determined.